Hi everyone, and welcome to episode 141 of Let's Play on the Story Tinker. And today we have Laura, who's been here before, and we have a new co-host, Sabra. And I will let these ladies introduce themselves.
Hello. I'm excited to join you guys. I've always been kind of talking at you in the podcast. I'm like, I want to say something. So I'm excited I actually get to join in for real this time instead of just talking to myself like I usually do.
You can always leave comments, you know.
It's true.
Great. And I'm Laura, back again. I've been on episodes for Midnight Poppyland and Purple Hyacinth, so it's my first time being on an episode of Let's Play. I'm really excited.
Yep. And Laura has her own podcast called Laura Asks Motherhood, which we're going to link. So check it out because it's really, if you're a parent especially, or if you're considering becoming a parent, it's very deep and profound and honest and raw. And it's really quite, I think it's fantastic.
I'm going to check it out.
Thank you. Yeah. And if any listeners want to come on, you are more than welcome to be interviewed by me and answer all my invasive questions. Laura asks about motherhood.
Awesome.
Great. Awesome stuff.
Okay.
And Sabra, should I promote the upcoming Q&A?
That would be awesome. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, so Sabra and I just spent some time, a significant amount of time yesterday, because Sabra was nice enough to put together a Q&A session with Mongi. And she gathered questions from the Facebook group and submitted to
almost
Mongi.
70 questions.
Yeah, and so we got answers and we recorded it together yesterday, and it is super interesting. I'm so excited for y'all to see it.
It'll be exciting. It's fun. I'm getting a few things ready, but then hopefully we'll be able to put it out there for everyone.
Awesome. Okay, so let's get started. We're brief, the brief introduction, which we don't really cover, is Umed and Charles talking about Indigineer and Sam saying that she'll help, and then we have the episode. So take it away, Sabra.
Oh, I'll do the first
Laura's
part.
Going first.
Yeah, sorry, Laura. Sorry.
That's fine. So the first panel is just a panel of the TV and like a closet door, which I'm just now noticing. Like I didn't really notice that before, but it's like, okay, that's an interesting way to start the episode. I'm not really sure what to say about that, but the TV is off too. It's not like something interesting.
I'm trying to remember if we've seen it before, if this is kind of just an introduction to their apartment, but I don't know if we've even.
Yeah, I guess it's just background setting. Like I don't know, I'm not deriving any meaning from this.
Yeah, probably no meaning, just setting the scene.
I guess, especially since after a couple panels, we find out that Vikki has a migraine. So the TV's off, so she's like trying to keep the stimulation down, I guess. So then Angela is in the next panel and she says, "Are you sure you're okay, Vikki? You've been feeling out of it since yesterday." She looks really concerned. She's in her scrubs, getting ready for work.
Got her worry mark.
Yeah. And Vikki is all cocooned in a blanket. "Yeah, I'm okay, Angela. It's just a migraine. You know how I get." And she's looking down. "I'll feel better after I can cleanse my energies." And Angela, "I know you're into the whole energy thing, Vikki. How do you know you're not actually sick with these headaches? I'm really worried about you." Which, is a valid question.
She's a nurse.
Yeah.
Wait.
That's true. Yeah.
Dentist.
Dentist?
Yes.
We forgot. Okay.
I did too. Dental hygienist? Dentist?
Yes, I think she's a dental hygienist, but still it makes sense that she's more concerned about her headaches in a more physical aspect instead of an energy aspect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. My brother's in dental school, and there's a lot of stuff that starts in the mouth that has symptoms elsewhere. So like maybe she's coming from that perspective. Like maybe there's something wrong when that's why you have headaches. I don't know. Yeah.
Interesting. I know my grandma is like Vikki, like this. She's I don't even know exactly what this is about, but she's like a Reiki healer, which I think is energies, and she did reflexology, and so she's into all this stuff. So yeah, when I heard that, I was like, "Oh, Bobby." Grandma. So,
I still find it interesting on how close these two are, and yet they're so different. Yeah. But in a good way. But they are very different, and they think health-wise very differently. But it's sweet that they're still so close.
Yeah, and they don't judge each other or like put each other down for thinking differently about things. They're just still really close. Mm-hmm. So it's pretty cool.
Right.
But Angela is very concerned and expresses that concern. "You should go to a doctor and get checked out, like a brain scan or something." And Vikki is a little bit it looks a little bit more worried or stressed out about that maybe. Sorry, Angela, it's hard to explain, but even if I did, I don't think you would understand.
Truth.
Aw. Yeah.
But, I am happy. Like there are some things, honestly, I know that for me, I find it very hard to share opinions with people who I know disagree with me because I don't like that. I like to always we all agree on everything. Like
There's just certain topics you avoid with certain people just to
Right.
keep the peace.
Yeah, I do that. And it's like, I wouldn't even be able to say that sentence. I just would avoid the whole topic to begin with, which is not very courageous of me, I think. But, oh well, like, so hearing her say that, I'm like, for me, I just like, my heart clenches up a little because it's like, for me, it's like, oh, we disagree on something. And then it's like, oh, I can't say such a thing. But I appreciate that she's able to say that.
Yeah, that they're okay in the relationship to have a little bit of conflict or a disagreement on something, and they're comfortable with that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because this is Vikki kind of setting a boundary here with Angela. And then in the next panel, she's even more firmly so setting a boundary. At least let me help you to your bed so you can sleep it off. And Angela offers her hand to Vikki, but Vikki like is startled. She jumps away. No, don't touch me. And that startles Angela. But, oh, that's surprising. That would probably surprise me too. But Vikki says, I'm sorry, Angela, I'll be okay. I just need to rest. I also have a friend coming over to help me with my energies. They'll be here soon. So Angela doesn't seem to take offense at that. She's just concerned. And so she backs off. She recognizes that's Vikki saying, this is what I need. Please don't touch me. So she backs off. If that's what you want, Vikki, but promise me if you need anything, you'll call me, okay? And be careful.
She's reaffirming those feelings. She's just making sure, okay, this is what you want, but I am here if you need me. I like that.
Yeah, totally. Yeah,
doesn't get offended and run away or anything. She's still there for her if she needs her.
Yeah, it reinforces what you were saying earlier, Sabra, that they're just like so different, but they're so good friends. They're such good friends, and they're like really good about respecting each other's boundaries. So Vikki says, I promise. Angela turns away so she can walk to work or head out to work. She says, I'll stop by the grocery store after work and pick up that organic peanut butter you like so much. You look kind of pale and you could probably use the protein. It's so sweet.
It is.
Also, I can
so nice.
her eating peanut butter straight out of the
tub. While she's doing her yoga stretches.
Yeah. She's still very concerned. She's looking at Vikki as she walks away. And Vikki says, thanks, Angela. See ya. Door closes. She heads out. Oh boy. And then we see Vikki. She's just like kind of distressed, alone in the apartment. Sorry, Angela, but I just can't handle your energy right now. And she like sighs and lowers her head. And we have a panel of 3 hearts. They're white. And it says drained. And it just has her last heart pulsing.
Oh, I think it's important that they're white. I was just thinking about it because when we see the hearts, they're either frozen like with Charles or they're red. I think the white is more symbolic of energy as opposed to
emotions.
Yeah.
Love, ability, like warmth.
Exactly, because I don't think that's what she has a hard time with. I don't see her in the same place as Sam when her level is at 1 heart, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure.
It's a little bit different.
Yeah, that's a good point. I hadn't thought too much about that, but like I think subconsciously I kind of picked up on that. So like when we see the hearts, it's usually in like a romantic setting. So like with Charles' frozen heart, right? If Sam is trying to melt, or like his heart is melting in response to Sam, or when the other
with Sam, it's more of self-confidence, right? Like when she gets a handshake from Marshall about how he feels about ruminate, or when Charles talks about ruminate with her, that's when she seems to gain those other heart containers, and then they just all get squished to death when Link says he's not attracted to her. And so
point, I'm gonna reread now and
I've read
that.
Yeah.
But we also see the hearts diminish, like with Marshall when he sees the dedication, and then just goes, his hearts just completely blank out. So I think when I first saw the 1 heart, I kind of panicked. It's like, oh no, Vikki. But I kind of see it differently now, that it's the white heart. It's more her energies and it's saying drained. I think it's going to be easier, hopefully, for her to regain some of that energy and those heart containers back than what we've seen with Marshall and Sam and Charles.
Right. Because for them, it's like a personality thing. And Marshall, I think, I love what you're saying. I think Marshall, maybe it's like self-love in a way, because he, I think, doesn't have enough of it. He always takes up too much guilt upon himself.
Do we even know if he has any heart containers filled right now? Because last we saw them, I'm pretty sure they were still all blank.
Oh, yeah. And he has the old issues with his family and disappointing his family. So I think it just doesn't hold highly of himself.
Yeah. And
And
all right.
the last time we saw, I don't think we've seen Angela's heart containers except once in episode 91. I remember it because that episode like made me bawl. Like it had a very profound impact on me. It was Angela confronted Link about like
the storage closet.
Yeah, dumping Sam. And so Link clarified that he just wasn't attracted to her, but like could understand that Angela was upset. And then Angela had the personification of shame behind her, and she she had the heart containers, but they were shielded. Like once
You're
Link
right.
asked about being hurt, like her hearts were like shield, and she like got really closed off. So I wonder if that's part of why Vikki right now like recoiled from Angela right now, because she's so guarded and so shielded.
Which says a lot, because in that same episode, we see Vikki approach Angela in just a giant form of love.
Yeah.
Even bigger than Angela's shame. Makes shame seem drained. That's a good episode to bring up for this, another Angela and Vikki episode. So to see Vikki like this, kind of a big deal.
Yeah. And that's what made me cry so hard, because I was like, they are such good friends, and Vikki could see that Angela was in a lot of pain, and she came over and was like a source of healing for her.
Exactly. She knew exactly what needed to be done. And she even kind of not chastised her, but guided her in apologizing to Link, and let Link know that he had crossed a line in the kindest way possible. She really is a sweetheart.
Yeah, but she like has sorry, Mindy, go ahead.
Yeah, she was really emotionally wise,
Yeah, and she has like so much love for her friends, but also so much love for herself, which I think is part of the reason why that love personification was so huge, which again, like you were saying, Sabra, is so significant now. Like she's so drained as compared to when that
can't even handle a small touch from her friend, who I don't think is in a horrible place right now. She's not being confronted by anything, but even that is too much for her. Kind of a big deal. Sorry to stop on that, but that was good stuff.
Yeah. So Vikki rubs her face, her forehead, and she combs back and brushes her hair back. And we see that she has a white streak in her hair, in the front of her hair.
It looks so good.
She opens her
She's been
eyes.
hiding it so well.
Isn't it pretty?
Yeah. I was thinking.
Why do you think?
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna ask. Why do you think she hides it?
Maybe. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe. Well, I don't know if she necessarily hides it so much as like she likes her hair better in that position. Maybe like covering her face. That is what, like. Actually, maybe let's do the next panel. Let's discuss it. But I have questions related to both her hair and her eyes. Because
let's because I'm thinking of some things too. So let's.
Okay. So she brushes her hair back, and she's kind of like shaking, and she sighs, and she opens her eyes, and then she pants, and she's like shaking some more. She's really not in a good way.
And when we say opens her eyes, she opens her eyes. I gasped. I did an audible gasp when I saw her open her eyes, and they're this light, I would say white, but maybe they're like a light blue. I don't know. What do you think? Silver.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's like an actual existing color, but it looks silver to me. Yeah. So yeah, what do you think? I thought Vikki's eyes were open all along. I mean, obviously they must be open to some extent, otherwise she couldn't see. But like, yeah, what do you make of the fact that like she's opening her eyes really widely and exposing her face?
I remember when she was when Marshall was like waving his hand in front of her, and she did say that I'm not blind, but I wonder if she keeps her eyes so closed on purpose because she can see so much.
Mm.
She doesn't need to have her eyes open all of the time because she can already see more than anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe if she's grown up with this ability to see these emoticons or emotions, maybe this is just kind of a defense mechanism where even she doesn't have to discuss it. I mean, she doesn't have to discuss the color of her eyes or the streak in her hair, which definitely makes a very interesting topic of conversation. And maybe she just kind of avoids it, lets her kind of stay in the background. Maybe she's more comfortable there, helping from a distance, not from a distance, but helping
Not drawing
from the
attention to
background.
herself.
Exactly. I don't think she has that desire. What do you think?
I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure. And it's interesting that she chose to do that once Angela left. So like maybe it's just a further way to like kind of as part of her process to cleanse her energies, whatever that means.
Well, she's been doing this ever since she's little because didn't they know each other since grade school as well?
Yeah.
So she's been hiding her eyes and her hair for a very long time.
Yeah. So my thoughts also were like similar to what, in terms of the eyes, similar to what you were saying, that I think she gets easily overwhelmed and overstimulated. So because of that, and I think that her putting her hair over her face and closing her eyes maybe is a way of hiding herself. And like she probably would feel too exposed to be open like that. And I'm thinking also the fact that she has a white streak in her hair could be that because of her empathy and her extreme reaction to people around her, she might have gone white early out of like stress or emotion. So, and maybe she doesn't want people to know about that. Or, you know, I think maybe it's just honestly an effect of like how it's arranged that once she hides her eyes, happens to be that the white streak is like hidden also. But yeah, it's interesting. Like, I didn't give it too much thought until now, probably because we didn't really have a Vikki focused episode till now.
Oh, and isn't that interesting? We discussed that in Let's Play, everybody seems to be dealing with a different trial or trauma. And if you had asked me before this episode, or before the last few episodes, who was in the most healthiest state, I would have said Vikki.
Mm-hmm.
But it makes her a lot more interesting in my opinion, that we see what she actually goes through in order to help all of these loved ones around her. It doesn't come free of grief or pain. She's got her own things to work through, even if it is working through other people's emotions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. My undergrad was in psychology, and I was planning on being a clinical psychologist. And then I worked at a social service organization, and I heard people sad stories all day long. And I changed my career path after that because I was like, I couldn't tolerate it. You know, I was always like more sensitive, and I think I'm obviously like much more thick-skinned now, but I couldn't handle it. And I was like, I just can't hear people sad stories all day long. So, and you know, she probably seems to be taking everyone's emotions to heart.
Literally, we saw her heart strained.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, now we have the 8 part. So,
all right. Yeah. Okay. We pan back to take a look at the front door, and we see that there's a knock. It causes Vikki to jump, but she says, "Come in." I think even that hurt her a little bit more because in the next panel, we see her wincing and touching her forehead. She looks like she's in a lot of pain. The door opens.
She seems like she's sound sensitive. I have a friend also who's extremely sound sensitive. Whenever like, just like this, it would hurt her ears. She always jumps whenever we make a small noise. We have to be like super conscious about making noise around her because she gets migraines easily, like because of them. And so, yeah, so.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that's definitely taking place. So the door opens and we see somebody walking in. Thank you for coming on such short notice. Of course, Vikki. Then you see this individual sitting down next to her on the couch. Can't see the face yet. You're always welcome to call when you need help. And then we see that it's Abe, dear Abe. He is kind of leaning over and looking over at her in a concerned and sympathetic way. You overdid it again, didn't you? And she looks at him and she's got her eyes open and her hair streak visible. So he's definitely seen her like this before. And she just says, I didn't mean to, but I met someone who was too much.
So before we get into that part, what do you think of the fact that she didn't even tell Angela that it was Abe that was coming over?
That was one of my questions too, because Angela obviously knows him. They all game together. I just got a notification my internet connection is unstable. Can you still hear me?
Oh yeah, you're good.
Okay. Okay, sorry about that. Okay. I wonder if Vikki didn't tell Angela because she didn't want Angela to be jealous that she was reaching out to someone else for help rather than Angela. I don't know.
Yeah, that could be it. That's a good point.
Because people are different. Not everyone will be able to be helpful in the same way all the time. So she couldn't get this kind of help from Angela. But I totally get that she doesn't want to offend her.
I think we also kind of, when we get to know people, we kind of put them in an assumed box of what we expect to come from that individual. And when Angela thinks of Abe, she thinks of her raid boss, who's, it's very different than thinking of somebody who's coming over to help Vikki with her energies. And it's just a very different box that you almost don't expect Abe to be in. And maybe it's a preference of both Vikki and Abe to keep that side of things not just secret, but sacred almost. It's like this is what we need together. Because she obviously keeps a lot of it secret. And as I recall, she helped Abe through a lot of trouble when they first got to know each other, correct? Because she's the one that got him into gaming.
That's right.
So they got to know each other.
I'm trying to remember. Do you remember what he went
He
to?
had an injury, and I think he went to her because of the injury, and obviously she helped him through all of the troubles that he was going through. I mean, he was going to be a professional football player.
Right. Yeah.
So he probably had a lot of emotions to be going through as well. And depending on how long ago that was, maybe she was also kind of developing her skills as this person helping with other people's auras. So maybe it was a learning experience for both of them, and she opened up. I mean, we haven't gotten a backstory, but just taking a look with what he talked to Marshall about that one day at that luncheon.
Yeah, that would make sense why they're so close now. They connected on that level.
Yeah.
And remind me, correct me if I'm wrong, Abe was in the military?
Yes. I can't remember the, he had an injury playing football though. He was in the military. I think he left the sport to join the military and then maybe played while he was in the military and then got an injury. I just know that the injury was sports related, not military related.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I have to do another reread.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. What was I going to say? Because I remember Vikki suggested he become a vegetarian, right? And then I think she introduced him to gaming as kind of an outlet. So definitely a lot of bonding there between them. She probably introduced him to Angela. So they knew each other before he knew Angela. So she says, I didn't mean to, but I met someone who was too much. He asks, who was it? A new person in your class? No, it was Sam's boss. What did you feel? Just looking at each other, you see a panel of just her looking very worried. You see a lot of those worry sweat marks that Mongi likes to draw. And she just She looks like she's worried about saying what she's about to say.
Mm.
But she looks away and says she felt a need to control so powerful. He's unable to let go. Chains bind both ways. I was curious about that line. That line has me thinking. Chains bind both ways.
What do you think it means?
I'm having a hard time with it because obviously we see the emotions, control, chaining the emotions. But I also think it means control is chaining up Charles.
Yeah.
One thing I remember from an interview with Mongi, when she was talking about the emoticons to begin with, she was talking about how when she feels anxiety, she doesn't think of herself as an anxious person. She thinks of anxiety as this other entity that she's got to deal with for however long until anxiety has been appeased. So when I look at these emoticons, I try to remember this isn't, when we look at control, control isn't Charles. Control is an entity that Charles has to deal with. And I think that he is bound by control. And I think he is using control to bind his emotions. But I don't think he doesn't have any control at all either. He's bound by control just as much as his emotions are bound by control.
Yeah, that's what I read from it also.
I think I'm figuring it out as I talk. I'm really just like racking my brain. Chains bind both ways. When we see that chain going after Vikki, a lot of people were thinking that it was Charles being malicious in a way or trying to control her. I did not see that at all. When she felt what she felt with Marshall, it was Marshall's feelings coming out through her. So I feel like those chains coming after her is what is happening to Charles. Those chains are wrapping around Charles. We see him reach out a lot in this and then pull back all the time, or put his hand in his pocket where the ring is hidden. Even in this other past episode where we see him try to kind of linger and we hear like, kiss her. But he backs off quite abruptly. It's just, I can just see somebody just pulling on these chains that are wrapped around him. Right. Every time he reaches back. That's just kind of what I am imagining.
Yeah, I don't think he has access to his full personality at all because of all his control, and you can't live a proper life.
And he doesn't have access fully to other people too. I think is another way to look at the chains bind both ways. Like he's not allowing himself to express himself fully, but he's also not allowing people to express themselves around him either, or like to accept their expressions towards him. Like he can't let that in, and he won't let it out either.
That's true. Yeah, he doesn't want to show people who he is. So sad.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, the chain like wrapping around his arm going towards Vikki, that imagery makes me think of when someone is feeling highly anxious. I don't know if I should say this. So my mom is super anxious. Yeah, she has so much anxiety. Like when she's not in the house, it feels okay. As soon as she walks in, everybody is like on high alert.
On their toes.
Yeah, because she just exudes so much anxiety, and it's not something she's aware of. It's just, that's how she lives her life. It's not something she does maliciously. It's really hard for me to be around her for long periods of time because she has so much anxiety. And maybe that's the same kind of thing that Charles was exuding, that Vikki picked up on.
Yeah, people, well, I guess we kind of see that with some of the characters. When he's in the room, people kind of tone things down a bit. Maybe because for whatever reason, in Sam's case, she gets embarrassed talking about certain things. And so she kind of just tones things down. It's like, I don't want him to think I'm crazy or something like that. But kind of interesting. You can say so much about one line. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And I have to say, when I read this line, this is again if you listen to the podcast a while, like you I've said this so many times, but when I heard this line, I was like, wow, it was very attractive to me. And it's like everyone has their bit of I guess flaws that they not only can live with, but are actually attracted to. And this is my thing. Like I could not be with a man who was like too emotionally healthy. And this kind of flaw is like something I love. My husband does not have at all this need to control, but like something broken, just something, and that I'm like instant attraction.
No, I can completely agree. Growing up, the idea of I grew up in a place where people like to pretend they were perfect. And I think we see that a lot in a lot of places, but I always distrusted that illusion of perfection. It's like, be honest with me. I have flaws. You have flaws. You don't need to try to hide these flaws. You don't need to broadcast them, but you don't need to hide them as much. And he definitely tries to hide them, but I think it's also obvious to everybody that there's something going on with him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. Ready for the next? Okay. All right. So she, going back, no, it's Sam's boss. Abe asks, is Sam safe around this man? And I really kind of appreciate this panel.
Mm-hmm.
Because it could have gone so many different ways, but Vikki again is looking up at Abe, looking very worried. And she just says, I don't know, Abe, I can't tell the future, but I don't think he means her any harm. And I'm glad she mentioned that. I was a little anxious reading through this, wondering what her reaction would be to what she saw, because it obviously scared her, but did it translate in her wanting to separate her friend from this man who's too emotionally damaged to let go of his emotions? So I kind of appreciate that.
To me, this line was very ambiguous, and it left a lot of room in the future for things to go wrong.
It definitely did. Mm-hmm.
I don't know what's going to happen, which means like it could be that Sam will end up burnt by her experience with Charles. But I like that she says he doesn't mean her any harm, because we know that Charles does care about her and he's worried about her, getting too caught up, and, he doesn't want to hurt her. But it could be that he will hurt her inadvertently because of who he is and his flaws.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think what this panel means for me really is implying that there's not going to be any physical harm. Because he's asking, is she safe around this person? And then Vikki, he doesn't mean her any harm. It does imply that she could be hurt by this man, but I don't think it would be physical pain. He's not abusive, but definitely being who he is, he could cause emotional pain. Okay. Then we see Abe extend his hand to her, and he says, well, at the very least. And then we see another panel of him just looking at her with such care, and we can work on getting you feeling better. So we see Vikki place her hand in Abe's hand, and then she's smiling. She's just got this cute smile on her face, and even just reaching out for Abe, he must have a wonderful, clean aura, because she's just, her happiness is just so cute here.
Mm-hmm. And she's been sweating this entire episode so far. So like, yeah, it could be partly that she's worried, but she's also like probably in a lot of physical pain.
Mm-hmm,
like
true.
When I have a migraine, it's not fun. And so I imagine that like the exertion of being awake, and when there's a bunch of light in the room, or like even the sound of the door opening or talking, could all be really painful for her. So I imagine her just needing like a stop to the conversation and just like sitting and being is probably a relief.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So I have to say, one thing that I really liked about this was that Abe is a character who defies expectations. And as soon as we know him, he defies expectations. He's a big guy, he's very masculine, and you would expect him to be tough and rough and not in touch with his emotions. But he obviously is very, emotionally intuitive and able to talk with sensitivity and care and take these things seriously. So I like how Abe, represents that, men can also be helpful and emotionally sensitive.
Yeah. One thing that we talked about in the Q&A that you made me think of, and I was excited to talk about it today. You mentioned being, when Mangi talked about the characters and what kind of roles they play in her life, we were kind of intrigued that Charles wasn't a character that she really seemed to bond with. And we just, like, usually when you write a romance comedy, you make the romantic lead somebody that you would be interested in, right? But then who was the individual that Mangi said she associated with the most?
Yeah, Abe. Surprisingly.
Well, it was Vikki. It was Vikki,
Sorry,
remember? Yeah,
okay,
she kind of is an empath, just like Vikki is. But then when you find out who she would be more attracted to in a romantic sense, if she was in Let's Play, it was Abe. So she kind of did create a relationship that she could see herself in. She wrote a character that for herself that she would feel bonded to. It was just not the main characters, not the leads. So I just thought that was kind of fun.
So actually, now that leads me to another question. Every character has a problem, right? And that's what makes it rich. What's Abe's problem?
Well, we kind of talked about it before. I kind of feel with this relationship with Vikki, we kind of see that he's kind of overcome his problems already. Most of them anyway. I'm sure he has problems, but the big ones that he had to overcome were kind of in the past. Hello, Kitty.
Chloe says hi. And that, I think, shows, like, the fact that Vikki calls on Abe shows a lot about, like, the inner work that he's done. The fact that he is a safe place for her to turn to, a safe person to go to, and to help her feel better. Like, he must have done a lot to really be that support and comfort to her.
Agreed.
Yeah, it's very nice. I love how this comic has so many different kinds of people and different kinds of issues and the ways of dealing with things. I know I have a very close friend group, and it's taught me so much about different personalities because we share a lot of interests, but each of us is so different emotionally. And I feel like for most of my life, I was pretty narrow-minded, and I didn't understand personality types that were different than me. And having such a close group of friends, like it's 5 friends, we talk every day. And it really makes me understand how people are just born different, and you have to be able to respect those differences. So yeah, it's just really, I like to see the variety of personalities represented here.
Yeah, nope, I completely agree. It's really fun. All right, I think that's done with those panels. Your turn, you're up.
Okay, so we have the exterior of some buildings, and Charles is driving Sam to work, and he is looking quite somber as usual, glances over at Sam, who is falling asleep while holding coffee. And he tells her, "Be careful, Samira, you're about to spill your coffee." And she jumps, and good thing he saved her. And she yawns and she says, "Sorry, Charles, I was up late last night and didn't get much sleep." And he turns away and he's like, "I hope you were not up for any bad reasons." Which my first thought was like, is he thinking she's like sleeping with someone?
No,
I was a little jealous.
Totally didn't think that, but maybe, yeah.
Or maybe he's like, "Were you still distressed over us making out over the weekend? Like, was it still bothering you?"
Yeah, that's probably more likely. I think that it's pretty clear to him she is not sleeping around with anyone at this moment in time. And
Don't think I don't think he has to worry too much in that instance.
Yeah, and he probably is worried, you're right, Laura, about his role because, he felt guilty in some ways about pushing her too much or whatever. So she's like, "No, I was," and she does hesitate because we know that she was hesitant to talk with him about her, nerdy hobbies, but she does actually talk about it. She doesn't pretend, that it was something else.
I love the word bubbles in this one because they're all squiggly so you can kind of see she's talking like,
That's a good point. I didn't notice the squiggly part. Yeah, so she's like, "I was playing World of Warcraft with a friend. He just hit max level recently, so I've been helping him out." So obviously that's Dion, and we still don't know who Dion is. And we're like,
yes, but we're going to talk about this next panel.
Yeah. So Charles' reaction is like, "I see." And he turns away and he's like, "Speaking of gaming, have you had a chance to speak with Benema Indigineer?" So it is his reaction.
Pause. It's so funny because there are so many reasons to think that it's Marshall, but I still, to my core, still think it's Charles. I still think
Oh.
it's Charles. I
Make it
do.
safe. Let's hear it.
Oh, I've got, yeah. So the character Dion is still a combination of all three of these men. So he is obviously designed to create confusion by Mongi. She doesn't want us to know who he is. We see symbolism that it's Marshall with the star on the book. We have seen him call somebody Miss in Ruminate. He says Miss Witch. So even though I would say that that's Charles to the core, he did say Miss Witch in Marshall's run through of Ruminate. But we also see the character Dion has rings all over his fingers. And that makes me think of the ring in his pocket. We also see his power, which is ice, which immediately makes me think of Charles' ice-covered hearts. Also, when I think of Marshall doing a playthrough, I think of him picking a character that's more, wham bam with a sword, somebody who's more physically involved in attacking. That just seems to me to be the games that he kind of gravitated to, while I see Charles picking something that's more analytical and magical. It's just personal opinion. I still, to my core, think it's Charles. Mostly because of his hidden hobby that Mongi has talked about in interviews. She's talked about that he has a hobby. It's not
Escape room.
Yeah, it's not escape rooms, and it's not fencing, because we already knew about this when she talked about it. She says it was a hobby that he is embarrassed by. He doesn't talk to anybody about it. And he shared this hobby with Mongi. So it's something that she used to do. Yes.
I didn't hear that part.
I will show you that interview. It was a different interview. It's she says that she shares the same hobby with him. And in another interview, I have heard her say that she played World of Warcraft.
Okay, yes.
So that is the reason why I think, plus I still think Charles is endgame. And so when I see him look away and say, I see, hi, by the way, have you talked to, I think that's him deflecting. I think when he looks away, he is trying to completely change the subject because he doesn't want to confess that he has been playing the same game. I don't even know if he knows that he's the one playing with Samara. I don't know.
Well, that I was going to say that Charles could be a little manipulative and not forthright, and it would make sense to me if he didn't tell her that he was playing with her. I don't like it if he was doing that, but I would see it as being totally within his character.
Well, how many times is he been manipulative? That's I think he portrays that he is manipulative, but I don't think he's as manipulative as we think. But that's a whole nother thing. We could talk about another hour on that, in honesty.
I don't know. I don't know if Dion is anybody that we know. Like, I wonder if it's a woman actually that like designed the character, because like Samara, she was like, this is my dream man. So maybe it's like some other lady out there like, this is my dream man. I just wants to play, I don't know, as a Shakespearean talking good looking character in the game. I don't know.
I think Karma looks more like Charles than anybody else.
Yeah, I think so too.
And somebody pointed out on our Facebook group that Samara mentioned to Charles that she liked Ben's old hairstyle.
Yeah.
I just thought that was kind of funny. So I think it would be more likely for Charles to change the hairstyle to match his old hairstyle than Ben making his face look like Charles.
Well, it's pretty persuasive.
I can't stop thinking that it's Charles, but then again.
I mean, on the Facebook group especially, there was so much discussion and it was so cool. Like
there are some good points on both. All three, really. It could be somebody totally different. It could be Marshall. It could be Charles. Yeah, it could be anybody. It really could. I just maybe hope that it's Charles. I also think with a game called webcomic like Let's Play, I think it would be more interesting to have at least two of these men be gamers, even if one is kind of a closet gamer.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Because we already know Link doesn't really play.
Right. So what I am sensing from this Dion character is that he's probably going to be, she is probably going to be significant in some way, that like emotionally, because it wouldn't, why are we being introduced to this person? Why are they coming into her life? And right now it just seems very, neutral, just, okay, I'm training with this person, but I feel like it'll end up being some kind of big drama in some way.
Could be a little bit like You've Got Mail, where she can open up to one character who's more kind of an inanimate object that she doesn't have to really be nervous around, as opposed to opening up to other people around her.
I'm thinking maybe a betrayal, like if it's Charles, or either way, she's like, why didn't you tell me? And, something it might be like, for me, I foresee it like maybe this would be an impetus for her to, if it's Charles, right? Some kind of drama happening to separate,
I still think Charles is going to go to this other job for a time. Yeah. I don't think he'll stay, but
yeah,
I think that's definitely, and I don't think that little seed would have been planted to be ignored.
Right. Yeah, same. Well, okay, lots of cool discussion. He changes the conversation to Indigineer, and she says, yeah, I talked to Ben yesterday. He doesn't, and notice he calls him Ben, right? Not Marshall. So he's like, yeah, I talked to him yesterday. He doesn't know anyone there, but he's going to ask around. He seems excited to help. And he's like, I'm not surprised. Ben has always been eager to please in a marginally more healthy way than his sister. So remind me again, how does he know Ben?
He knows Ben because he and Eva fenced together, and Ben would come and watch. Okay. I think even Ben did do fencing for a little while, but he didn't like hurting people. So he became more of a spectator.
Yeah. So also, Eva didn't strike me as a person who wanted to please. Is he referring to just like sexually? Like, she seems quite combative, if anything.
No, I think maybe he's kind of commenting on, even though Marshall is, or Ben is eager to please, the way he tries to please so hard, it's not very healthy. I think it's a little sarcastic here, maybe. And his sister is extremely not eager to please. Okay. So I think maybe he's like in just a marginally healthier way than his sister. I don't know. What do you think? Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was thinking his sister like did everything that their dad wanted her to do.
True.
Lived up to her dad's expectations, and it's like not the healthiest for her.
Yeah. You bring dad into play, that's definitely different. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. True. Yeah, I'm curious if we'll get to know more about like his perspective of the family, and because Charles might be closed off with his own emotions, but he's pretty good about reading other people's. So I'm curious if he'll lend us his insight about that dynamic. So he says, Samara, I hope you understand that this project with Indigineer may never happen. We could give them the perfect proposal and they may never still be interested or have the budget. I would hate for you to be disappointed that your first project, the one you're very passionate about, never took off. And he looks at her meanwhile. And I think that's very smart of him. I think he is more mature and experienced than her, just by virtue of being older and having lived more in the world. And I think that it's a very good point to tell someone, and he cares about her. And he doesn't want her to be crushed and to be, not have faith in her abilities and lose her passion. Mm-hmm. Good for Sam. Good for Charles. As much as we're worried about him, he is trying to be as sensitive as possible towards her. He really is always looking out for her.
Yeah, I think
oh, sorry, go ahead, Sabra.
No, you go ahead.
I was just going to say, even though Sam is looking away, she's hearing it, but she's like, sad about it. He's looking towards her so that if she does look over his way, that he can make eye contact with her and, briefly while he's driving, he can offer at least that little bit of comfort.
Exactly, yeah. Oh, I was just going to kind of reaffirm. I think we got the initial impression of what kind of character Charles was. And that was obviously deliberate. She wanted us to think that he was this hard nose. But he has just proved himself time and time again on how considerate he is of other people's feelings and emotions, even though he expresses that in such a stoic way almost. But he's very aware and concerned with especially Samara's comfort.
Mhm.
And yeah, he's never shown me to be, I'm just really shocked that he has gone through so much and he has closed off all of his emotions so much that he can still be as sensitive as he is and notice what's going on with her as much as he does. I find that kind of amazing.
I don't see him do that with other people. Like even with Mr. Young, he's very perceptive with him, but he's very rough with him. And he was rough with Marshall, with with the puppy Bowser. He's rough with Eva. He's rough with Miss Rosewood. I think he's kind of caustic to everyone else, but Samira has entered his heart, and he's kind of like his old self with her, like the nice person that he was before his wife cheated on him, and turned him into what he is now. I think that with everyone else he's bitter, but with her, she's the only one that wormed her way into his heart and brings out the old him.
We talked about how he doesn't like people to see his true self. Maybe he's caustic to the people who believed the appearance that he portrayed. Because if you think about all of those people that he's caustic to, they see him in a completely different way than Sam does.
That's very true. Yeah.
And so she's able to see through that and see past it. Even when he tries, and he said, I'm a cantankerous old goat. And she's like, don't make me stand up for you, against you. She doesn't even buy it. So she's, I think he's the way he is with her because she is the way she is with him.
Oh, I'm like totally falling in love with Charles as we talk. The more we talk about it, the more I love him.
Yes, I adore that man.
It does make me uncomfortable that they're in a it's not just coworkers. He's like her direct supervisor. That is weird. That's a weird dynamic.
Yeah, I think Mangi tried to work through that with the few little idiosyncrasies, like the fact that she is the CEO's daughter. He could be deported like that if he needed to be. But I also think he's been pretty respectful of those boundaries. Also mentioning the fact that it's okay to have a relationship in the office.
Right.
So
yeah, it is weird to me as well. And I don't know, I've never had this kind of a thing myself, so I don't know. I don't have much personal experience, but yeah, it's something that I also like. It's weird. I don't know.
Well, I think it's been a while since they've worked together. And it has only been recently where they've developed a connection or a chemistry, as Charles called it. So I think Mangi tried to make it as comfortable as it could be under the situation for the story. But yeah, it is a little weird. It's a little weird.
Yeah, I guess I wonder if maybe that'll come up at one point, like a conflict between them. I don't see it. I don't see it like have any hints of that so far, but maybe.
If Dad comes into play, it will.
Yeah. No offense to all the Mr. Young simps, but God, leave your daughter alone, man.
I'm really hoping that stalker isn't employed by Mr. Young. Him keeping an eye on her, wait, she didn't go on the bus. That's a little forgivable if he's not stalking her. That is kind of crazy.
But 22. I left home when I was 19. Trust me, my dad did not know when I was going on a bus.
Well, he's dealing with his own trauma as well. Each of these characters, they have this problem that they're going through, and each of these characters are not meant to appear perfect. And I like that. We kind of had this feeling for Mr. Young, and then now it's like, oh, wait a minute.
I never had that feeling because I'm very independent. I hate being controlled. So it's my personal trigger. I hate that. It's like my number one.
Yeah, who wants to be babied like that?
Some people think being told what to do. They like to feel secure and have someone else take care of them. I'm totally opposite. I like to be in complete control. No one takes care of me. I do everything myself. That's the flip side where you have to do everything yourself, but this way no one tells me what to do. So yeah. So that's
he definitely comes into play with what Samara's going through and why she is the way she is, why she keeps a blanket over her mirror, for crying out loud. Yeah.
Yep. So anywho, she responds and she says, I know, Charles, I don't actually expect for it to happen, which that is a little bit of her pessimistic thinking, I think. And she says, I just want to try to prevent what happened to me from happening to anyone else, which, it's her personal motivation. And he says, very well, Samira, I'm glad you're going into this with realistic expectations. And then she looks at him and she thinks to herself, Charles still seems pretty distant. I'd hoped that today would be better. What did mom do when dad was in a bad mood? So first of all, it's interesting that she interprets his being distant as his being in a bad mood, as opposed to his natural state of being. Or
I'm telling you, she sees him differently than other people do.
Well, also, Charles is really good at compartmentalizing. Like every part of his life is in its own little neat box, and it
Wrapped
does
up
not
in
interact with the other. Right, exactly. Yeah, but Sam, she would expect them to have slightly different energy now that they've been so intimate. But Charles is like, well, we're going to work, so we're putting on our work selves now.
Mm-hmm. I think that's for sure going on. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna be tough for them to navigate if she, expects him to be like kind and nice and flirty, or at least personable with her in all times. I can definitely see that. So she thinks to herself, she pictures Papa Young as this giant bear roaring. Whether he was sad or angry, mom never made a big deal. Mom's just like standing there with her tiny, but her hands are on her hips, not intimidated at all, ready to like boss him down. But what she does is she would just give him a gentle touch and speak to him softly. You see her touching her husband's chest, saying, I love you. And dad would instantly feel better. And he blinks and he blushes and he's like so captivated, and his mood would improve because he is obsessed with his wife. And maybe I should try small steps with Charles. And I like, by the way, I know that when I got married, the funny thing was when everyone learns different modes of behavior with their parents. And the funny thing was, the best thing about my parents' marriage for me was seeing them fight, because when I started fighting with my husband, I was like, my parents did this. They're still married. I can do this too. So, but like everyone learns things and observes things about their parents' marriage. And it's nice to see that she is, bringing that into her current relationship. It's very normal. That's what people do.
And good on her mom for like keeping her composure, because it's really easy to get like ramped up when someone else is ramped up. So it would be really easy for her to like turn into mama bear and they just roar at each other. But she's just like, oh boy, okay, calm down.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she's got that skill. And again, I really like that also because, their relationship, not everyone will be able to live with a guy like him. And, obviously vice versa for her. I don't know her thing yet, but like everyone has something. But some people just make it work. If it's the right combination, it works. And, I think about my husband and I, we each have things that other people would not be able to live with, but we can. And that's how it works for people.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, other people might be super frightened by Mr. Young's outbursts and wouldn't be able to handle it, but she can.
It'd be very intimidating. I mean, he crushes cell phones with his bare hands.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So now I love what Sam is thinking. She thinks to herself, maybe I should try small steps with Charles, like building a new game. When you make it from scratch, you have to write each line of code. The bigger parts of the game are not ready until the smaller parts are done. And I love that she is realizing that relationships are not smooth sailing. It takes a lot of little steps.
This is big for her.
Mm-hmm. And she's not expecting like, oh, he's distant, we're never going to work. It's never going to happen. She is being realistic, and mature and ready to put some work in. And I'm so impressed.
Yep, she's growing. It's awesome to watch.
Yeah, and I don't think I don't know that she is, well, I don't know. It's hard because Charles was like, I don't want a relationship. I don't want a girlfriend. I don't want that. If you want to play around, we can be, co-workers with benefits. And so then Charles was like, okay, but you have to take the lead. I don't want to overstep my bounds. I don't want to trespass on you. So you have to initiate. And she, in her way of initiating, is like taking the small steps of building a relationship, which maybe she was thinking of it more in like a sexual way. Like I have to be comfortable touching him before we can be more intimate. But this is like build the steps of building a relationship. And so for Charles, it's the same thing. Like he was not interested in having a relationship ever again. But with these little small steps with Sam, he's beginning to be more open to it. It's really beautiful.
It is really beautiful.
He doesn't know he's open to it, by the way, but like he thinks he's not. But
Oh, we discussed this the other day. He's breaking his rules left and right. If he had been in this same situation with any of the other women where they were showing this much interest, or he was even showing interest to them in this way, he would have called it off. He would have backed away. He's like, nope, we're not doing this. We saw that with Eva.
Exactly. Yeah.
He liked the chemistry with her, but because of her feelings, he backed off. And they're showing more connection than Eva and him probably ever did. So he's already breaking his rules left and
Yep.
right. Denial.
I wonder, yeah, I'm thinking, I know I've said this a lot, but I'm thinking at the point where he realizes he's in over his head, that's when he'll run away to that job. Because he's like, too much, I can't handle this.
Yeah, well, I think when we finally see those chains slip, I don't know if what we see is going to be very pretty.
Yeah.
I think it might change into an emotional nervous breakdown of some kind, in all honesty. Because, yeah, there's a lot we could talk about in that, but I don't think what we see will be very pretty. Maybe he will lose control romantically first or something like that, but there's going to be, he's binding up a lot of emotions. And I bet some of them are pretty traumatic for him, which is why he does it in the first place.
You know, when I met my husband had a abusive background and a lot of sad things in his life. And he told me when I met him, he was like, you know, when I have a negative feeling, you know what I do with it? I push it down and I push it down. And he's a jokester. My husband's really funny and he jokes and he trolls all the time. And I thought he was joking. And then as we lived together and I started realizing the extent of his trauma, which he hadn't talked about, I was like, oh my God, you were right. You really do that. I was like, oh my gosh, you weren't joking. So yes. And yeah, when it finally comes out, if it's been repressed, it's terrible. So yeah, I'm not expecting a very healthy Charles.
I'm hoping it helps, but I don't think it's going to be pretty at first.
Yeah, I mean,
he obviously needs to let go. What is it going to look like when he does?
Right. Oh, I love it. Again, this is the kind of stuff I love. It's terrible of me, but I do. So hence why I attracted my husband. So one of many reasons. But anywho, they are in the parking lot and Charles comes out of his car and Sam is still there. She's pausing. And he's like, Miss Young? He doesn't even say Sam. He's like, Miss Young.
You know, he's still in very formal mode, isn't he?
Yeah.
As soon as they get to work.
Oh, because this is at work, isn't it? Yes. For some reason I was thinking he was taking her home, but no.
Yeah, the coffee.
At work in the morning.
Yeah. And she steps out, stands in front of him, kind of is still looking down, and she places her hand on his chest, touches him. It's enough to indent his vest, so it's not light, it's like a significant pressure. And she looks up at him with a cute smile and blush and says, "Thank you, Charles." And just turns around. He's like, and she walks away confidently, tap, 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 and he's like turning after her. Hoo-hoo.
That look on his face.
Good for her. It must have been hard because she's not in, by the way, she's doing exactly what he wanted her to do, which is what you're going to say manipulation / training if we want to have that discussion. Like he said, you take the lead, and she's like, no, I can't do it. Guess what she's doing? Taking the lead.
She's doing it. Yep. But in her own way. I mean, she's thinking of it as a video game and comparing it to her parents. She's doing it in her own way, which is not a way he was expecting, to be honest. But I mean, because that is a very surprised Charles, a very surprised Welshman right there. And he's blushing. His
eyes are giant.
Who else blushes as much as Sam? Charles, of all people. Okay. Charles, especially in these last few seasons, the last few episodes. He is a blushy boy. I really honestly think before the divorce between him and his wife, I really think he and Sam are a lot more alike.
He tells her that he took a long time, right? He says like,
Mhm.
you're learning faster than I did, which also surprised me. But yeah, it seems like he was a totally different person before his wife cheated on him.
That's kind of why I think of him as a gamer as well, just
Yeah.
because I really think that they were more similar before all of this went down with his wife.
Oh, okay. Cool.
So, but then again, we don't see anything other than that.
What
Oh.
if his wife cheated on him because she was like disappointed in him and was like, oh, you're too nerdy. You're too like, you're not good at your job. You have a low paying job or
They
something.
got
And then
married at 18. They were both kids. After time went on, she might have felt like she had grown up and matured, which she obviously didn't if she's cheating. Then he did well. He kind of stayed in his nerdy, innocent self.
maybe he worked to become the man that she wanted him to be, but he wasn't, you know, not,
Maybe.
I don't know if consciously, but that would be an interesting complexity.
That would be so sad. Oh,
The scene kills me when we see Charles breaking down at the party, with him just sobbing.
No.
That's when I realized how broken he was.
No. I put that in, by the way, that video poem that I made today about the one that's Stone Heart about Charles. I put that picture in with his crying.
You're gonna make me cry now.
Yeah.
Really, just I think when she posted that episode, that's when I did. I already was starting to like Charles, but at that episode, it was just like, oh no, you didn't just make me cry over this Welsh boy.
Oh, darling.
That's one of the reasons why I think he's probably endgame. To have him so broken, he has to grow, he has to change. And if he doesn't get that at the end of the story, what was the point?
Yeah, so I mean, then it's a tragedy. Like, I know in storytelling,
It's true.
happy
What
ending,
a tragedy.
so I don't know. Is Mangi writing a tragedy? I don't think for every character, but maybe for him. I don't think so.
It is definitely possible. She's pulled surprises left and right. So
no, I don't think it's going to be a tragedy. I do think it's going to have a happy ending, but yeah, I mean,
it might not be the happy ending we want.
yeah. Do you want to talk about one of the recurring bonus questions I do is endgame theories, because I want to hear like everyone's opinion on it. I don't think I've done that with you, Laura, yet, right? No, we haven't been on Let's Play, so we could have that as one of the bonus questions and other stuff if you want.
Sure. Sounds good.
Okay. Awesome. So let's stop this recording and we'll move to the bonus question.